Hey guys, good evening. I don't know exactly what everyone has gone through and what everybody has done with their PS360 profiles and working with rScriptor, how much has been explained to them and the test server, etc. So I just wanted to show you kind of my setup and what's going on here. And I'm going to flip the camera around here to show you my setup here, what it'll look like ultimately when we get it going. I know a couple people don't have setup at home still, and you may or may not be hooked up to the test server. So basically, all that's required to take us from regular McKesson to PowerScribe 360 is an install CD. Gary's got one. He can talk you through how to install PowerScribe 360. And when you do that, basically when you open McKesson, it automatically opens PowerScribe over here in the other window, so you don't even have to do anything. Now, I'm logged on to the test server rather than the actual hospital server, so it's a little bit different. If I open up, I'm just going to open up a random study. It honestly doesn't really matter which one of these test studies I open. Donnie has like 19 or 20 different studies, and they're all named Nuance, first name, whatever your name is, and that way you can practice with various studies if you want to actually look at something real. But for the purposes of fooling around rScriptor, it almost really doesn't matter. So when you have the study open, you notice there's an rScriptor button over here. And rScriptor, all rScriptor does is open rScriptor, but rScriptor really is dependent upon PowerScribe, and we'll see that in a second here. So, all right, so then it pops up this little dialog box, of course, then you log in. If you don't have your password, please see Gary. James Fernandez might also know it. So it's sbold@samc.org. That's your email login, not your actual for real email. Okay, so I've got a study here, and I'm going to notify it to PowerScribe. That's like sending to dictation, and that gets it over here into the PowerScribe window. And because my rScriptor general report is my default template in AutoText, so if I go over here, AutoText, in my regular folder, see that little arrow guy? Default report rScriptor is my default report, so it popped up that way. All right, so if I go back to the dictation window, but let's say, okay, so if I didn't want to use rScriptor, I could just change my default option to the general report template. Click general report, and so that gets me this other thing. And like we talked about in the previous email, that gives me to a very standard looking report. So then I could just click back and forth in this and dictate like always. Severe headache. And when we get to the technique section, we have that big list of techniques in the technique folder, which I'm going to see if Gary can copy to everybody. CT head. Oh. Scratch that. Click CT head. Okay, so see it blows in the technique and the PQRI stuff. St. Elsewhere, January 2013. And it's I'm mumbling, so it's not getting me picked up. And then you get to the findings section, blah 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 blah, and it doesn't like blah blah blah. Okay, and massive subarachnoid hemorrhage. And so then you sign report and you're done. Okay, so that's how we could survive on February 5th if you don't know a single thing about rScriptor. Okay. But let's go back, and I don't want to save that, and I'll do a standard rScriptor report again. So I'll open that up, and that's my default report, rScriptor. And so it's because we're new here, it doesn't know what exam I have, so the exam is blank. And so the first thing I'm going to do is edit the exam, which ordinarily I would not have to do because it automatically will do this for me after the first time. So this is a CT head. And this is also in red, so I need to check that without. Okay, done, apply to dictation. Okay, so now it knows this is a CT head without. Okay, so then this is what we're talking about, narrative or structured reports. If I do something like findings, there is massive subarachnoid hemorrhage, period. The exam is otherwise unremarkable. New paragraph, impression, subarachnoid hemorrhage, period, paragraph, recommendations, urgent neurosurgical consultation, period. And then when I build the report, because I did findings and impression, that's all that will be in there. So that's narrative technique, but or using a narrative form. It's telling me that this is something bad, okay, which is a nice warning. Okay, so but you see that all this other stuff is already in there. The technique is already in there. I didn't have to dictate that, but it only puts in what I do, as opposed to using. So if I delete all this, subarachnoid hemorrhage period, then that will be in the findings, and it'll create a different report. So then it gives me a structured report, and unfortunately, because I didn't include the impression, it says no acute findings, and that's obviously not right. So we'll go back and fix that. Impression colon, subarachnoid hemorrhage period, possible ruptured aneurysm period. And interestingly, like if you put this new line, it starts to number it. So it does fun things like that. Okay. Anyway, there's a million little things you can do. A lot of that is in his YouTube video that I had sent you previously. I strongly urge you to go ahead and open up the tutorial file. So if you hit help, then in the thing that pops up, this one, rScriptor tutorial, let it open up. Yeah, allow. So he has these things in red, and basically you can just cut and paste these into PS360, and it'll show you what that report looks like. So for example, we'll grab a hold of this, copy it, come over here, go back to original, delete all that, and paste it in there. And it's not perfect because, oh, sorry, let me delete that first. Oh, I'm dying a slow death here. Okay, let me go over here, copy, over there, and paste. Because some of the formatting from his PDF doesn't always go into there, so occasionally you have to kind of put in the return lines wherever they are over there so that it matches. But anyway, you get the idea. Once you do that, it'll show you, you can play around with how everything looks and turn, even though that's, I've got a head CT open over here, it doesn't matter because we're just playing around in here. And so it'll start, you can make a CT abdomen and pelvis report, even though I had something different over here to begin with. Anyway, I strongly urge you to go through the tutorial. I think it takes probably about 2 hours for most people, but if you go through line by line, it really shows you kind of the details, and it gives you a really good working knowledge of this. I think once you see the features that are really available in rScriptor, you'll want to use it, and it makes your dictating even easier than in PowerScribe 360. Thanks.